Welcome back to the Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Red Sofa here in Munich at Digital Strategies Europe, where I'm very pleased to be joined by Oliver Ganser, who's leading digitalization across the BMW supplier network and procurement. And Oliver was just here on stage talking to our audience about agentic AI, scaling agentic AI, both at the BMW Group and importantly across the supply chain, which we'll talk about. But one of the key points, Oliver, that you really highlighted was the importance of leadership when it comes to this sort of transformation. Can you talk a little bit more about why that's so important?
Well, I think for many people, it's a lack of, or it's a matter of uncertainty. When genAI comes, what does it do with me? And I think we as leaders have to give certainty that you are the core asset of our operations and it will not make you go away. But the point is, what does it do with me? You have to give them a direction where we take you, and you also have governance. What is it happening? What can you delegate to an agent, and what is not part of an agent's job? What's your job still? And I think there's a big role in leadership in there, to be quite honest.
Absolutely. So both in sort of helping to lead that change, but giving that assurance and helping to define the roles of the future as they change. You, along with your colleagues, shared a really interesting use case, specifically around inventory check for BMW Group, tooling assets. So great example of work that can be automated and handled by an agent. Tell us a little bit more about what those agents are achieving and how they're helping your operations.
Well, that workflow so far was done by 850 purchasers. It came from our internal finance team. Then purchasers had to check, do I have this asset, and then who of my suppliers have that asset, and then you have to double check, is that asset still in place, is it relocated, etc. So it's a lot of, I have to talk to this guy, to that guy, and then to double check from this guy. It's cumbersome and everybody quite honestly hated it. And you have to do it 60,000 times a year, and it's a lot of billions of dollars of assets. It has to be accurate. So what we did is, while before we had humans do all those cumbersome processes, we now have an agent who leads the process and gets a human only in the loop when there's a deviation or when there's a critical escalation needed. And so far, 80% run completely by the agent. Only in 20% of the cases, you need a human in the loop for specific cases. And that shows people, hey, that actually helps me. And this is something where people suddenly said, I want more. But you need an easy entry case where you learn. You also learn your internal processes, your governance, and you gain acceptance in your team. And then they have the lust for more.
And that is a great example, and at that point of being able to bring the team with you, to convince them and show them the value. And of course, we talked about that's a great internal use case. What will be really powerful in the future is when agents can work across the supply chain, can work from not just with BMW, but together with suppliers, logistics providers, so to speak. How do you, there's many technical challenges to that for sure, but how do you envision that future communication and collaboration? How will it look like when we can achieve that?
Strongly, I believe in that there is a lot of communication between two companies or multiple companies within a value chain that is completely unnecessary and doesn't get any value. But it has to be done. So if you think about the logistical process, when you come, okay, can this volume scenario be done by my supply chain or not? Why do we have to take lots of people to discussing with each other, writing emails and filling out forms, etc.? Why cannot an agent guide us through that and say, okay, these are the 5 scenarios presented. But for that, you need a couple of things. You need trust and also digital trust. You need access and control rights, and you need a semantic and ontology and data that the agent is not, because the agent is not capable of bridging going through securities and cyber firewalls or understanding your language if it's not a universal language. So you have to find a common data foundation with metadata and ontology. But this is maybe Katina, maybe something else. But the point is, I strongly believe that intercompany connections and business optimization in the future, if we do it right and if you want to do it right, it's done by agents.
You mentioned it right there. Of course, additional role that you have as chairman of ContainerX. Do you see, indeed, ContainerX playing potentially one of the key foundational roles in achieving that?
I strongly believe that if we do not see a common data foundation as an industry, as the baseline, I think all agents will fail and stumble. Strongly, if the agent doesn't have a data foundation that we trust, we do not want probability, right? Yeah. In our business process, it's yes or wrong. or yes or no, right or wrong, and not 50% think this is right, 60% think this is wrong, well, maybe it's left or right.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that this volume scenario is right. So you need a common data foundation. I think Catena is the only way forward as an industry to lay a foundation that then will serve as an AI foundation for agents. We can, as a second step, build on top of that. But without that, we will fail. Strongly believe we will fail.
One other point we picked up on stage. Now, you're a VP of digitalization across a supplier network, but as you pointed out, you're not in the IT department.
No.
You have technical leads, of course, in your team, but you're working in the business side. That blurred line or integration seems to be really vital in this stage of transformation. Why have you taken that approach to the BMW Group?
If you look at what is an agent, and if you see an agent as we see it, as part of our future workforce, we have to also deal with it like it's part of our workforce. And the workforce, if it's a human or if it's agent or if it's human-agent interaction, it has to be governed by the workforce, because it's key that a person, a role, has a responsibility, and you can delegate a task. And this delegation could be, this task delegation can be done to an agent. If you're not doing this on purpose or knowing what you're doing, just outsourcing that, you lose control and governance. So I think for us it's key that we control also from business side what is the agent, and we want to become a part of it, the agents of our workforce. We have to also make sure that we deal with it within our workforce and with our business team.
Absolutely. You made that point. An agent as also a leader should be seen as also leaders in the future organization. Last question, Oliver. We're coming obviously to the end of 2025, looking to 2026. What would you point to as some of the key priorities for your team and your organization on the roadmap for 2026?
Well, besides world peace and harmony, I strongly believe there should be, the key priorities is that we take our employees with us. That is super, super key, because we could have the best and most powerful agents and technology out there. If it's rejected by the culture, like Drucker said, it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. So I think you have to plant small seeds, but reap and harvest them quickly. And I think the key priorities is to build the data foundation for 1, 2, 3 specific processes, and then run as fast as you can, fall down, get up on your heels, and run again.
So in 2026, we're going to keep running. Even
running.
If we fall, and the agents will be there perhaps to help to soften the fall a little
humanoids,
bit.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Oliver, thank you so much for being with us. I can't say how this was inspirational and guidance, but also give some real clarity for our audience. So we're excited to keep up with that and check the next step of the journey. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.